In this video, we'll have a look at the app bar, also known as the action bar. And if you go to the developer's website on training on the app bar, it's one of the most important design elements in your app activities because it provides a visual structure and interactive elements that are familiar to users. Using the app bar makes your app consistent with other Android apps, allowing users to quickly understand how to operate your app and have a great experience. And the key functions then of the app bar are as follows: a dedicated space for giving your app an identity, and it's this space there, this lighter green space there, and indicating the user's location in your app. So for every activity, you can tell the user where he's currently at. If you're adding a new person, for example, you can have the title here as add person instead of your app's name the whole time there. Access to important actions in a predictable way, such as search, and support for navigation and view switching with tabs or drop-down lists. Also, this one is the navigation drawer that comes in from the side. And then this is your overflow menu with some actions that we can add. So let's go to the coding and see how we can implement something like this. So this is another example of how we can implement the action bar. So this is the navigation drawer that comes in from the side. That's a video for another day, but there's the actions. So you can see there's a custom title and there's some actions there with an overflow menu. So we'll quickly have a look at how can we do an app like that. Right, so the first thing that we'll need to do is to go into our resources folder. You're going to right click on your resource folder and you're going to say new directory. So now the directory you must type exactly as it is there. It's called menu. So it's not automatically added there unless you use some type of template to create your activity or your whichever activity. Let's say you want to have a navigation drawer activity, then you'll probably have this menu folder there already. But with a blank project, as I normally do in my videos, we will be left without the menu folder there. So you need to create it and then say OK. Right, then after creating that menu folder, you should see it now under your resources folder, and it must be exactly the same spelling there. So right click on it and you can say new, and you can even see that they're making provision for the resource files that should go into that menu. So you're going to say menu resource file there. Let's just give it a name, and this depends on your activity. So I'm going to call this one main because it's part of my main activities menu system. So I'm going to use it as main there, but if you have other type of activities that you name descriptively, you can also name this one descriptively to know that it goes with that specific activity, and then you're going to say OK. Right, and then you're left with a layout file there that you can see how your action bar will actually look at this stage. Okay, so I'm going to drag in just a menu item there. Just drag in one menu item there. And if you go into coding there, you can see that we've got one item there. Now this item has got a title and it must have a title. And the reason behind that is the following. Let's just open up that app again that we just had open. If I, for example, hold down on this item, you can see it shows me list view. If I hold down on that item, it shows me sort by. And then these are also just the titles for the actions. So the title will go into your overflow menu, you'll see it, but also if the user needs to see what this does, list view or this one sort by or whatever, you can get an indication on this. And this is also for accessibility for people that basically cannot see or that's got trouble seeing. Then they could put on the accessibility part of the phone, and then it will help them to read out. This is the list view, this is sort by, and so forth. So the title is very important. The title must be there, and you can also see that it should go to your strings XML. Right, so there's the item. Let's call this one. We're going to start off with, let's say, a refresh button. So we'll have a refresh item there. Then also very important is we need an ID there. So we're going to add a plus ID there, and let's call this one refresh to refer back to it later on. So you'll need an ID for every item. Right, then the next one is the order in the category. And the order in the category, I'm just going to leave it 100 now. We'll look at that one later on. And that's basically just in which order do you want your actions to show here. Which one should come first and second and third and so forth. So by leaving it, or by making every one of them 100, for example, giving them the same order in category, it will be in the sequence that you provided here. So we'll see now how we can change those values. Okay, so now the next one is the show as action also. And you can see that the show as action is always if room or never. So if I say always, then it means that this item will always show in the action bar, whether there's space or not. Okay, so that's the always option. Then there's also a never option. And if you choose the never option, then it will basically never show there in your action bar, and it will directly go into the overflow. So if you want to have something in the overflow there, you can set it to never there. So it's always never, and there's also if there's room on the screen. So for example, on my action bar, if I look at it like this, there's not enough room there to add maybe more actions there on the action bar. But if I turn my phone to landscape mode, there's a lot more space now. So now if you said if there's room, it could be that you will have now a lot more items shown there in the action bar. Okay, so I'm going to use this one as if room. So if there's room, it's going to display it. And then the last one that we can do there, if you now look at your preview there, you can see in your preview it shows you that refresh button now. So it's called refresh, that's the title. But now you'll see that in the action bar, we don't really show text there. We show a specific picture there. So let's go and see how we can do this. So we're going to go into the resources folder. You're going to say new, and you're going to go to image asset. Now for the image asset, I'm going to use the action bar and tab icons. Now the name here, let's call this one refresh. You're going to go into the clip art, and we're going to search for the refresh button there, or the refresh picture there. So there's refresh. I'm going to say OK, and you can see there you can choose the dark theme, which means that in our case we've got a dark background there. So then the holo dark one will work. So it's going to show a white picture there. But you can also go to custom and change your own custom color there for the items. So I'm going to leave it at holo dark. And it's going to be refresh, and for the rest it should be fine. I'm going to say next, and I'm going to say finish. Now let's add the last part here, and that's the icon property. So I'm going to say icon there, and for the icon we can now go and have a look at the refresh button that we just added, or the refresh picture we added under the drawable folder. And now if you have a look at your picture there, you can see this is now the action. Right, so let's just do this 3 times. I'm going to have this one copied, paste it for another item and another item. Now this one is going to be called, this is refresh, so let's call this one download, and we'll get, let's just call it download there as well for the ID, and we'll look at the picture now. And then for the last one, let's call it copy, and for this one also copy. And then we'll have a look at the picture. So you can see what happened now is that even though we've shown pictures there, it shows that it's going to the overflow. So we'll have a look at that now when we run the app. Let's just go and add another 2 pictures there. So go to image asset again, use your action bar again. I'm going to go to the clip art again, and let's search for download. Let's take that one, and we're going to use it as a white color there. So let's just have it as download there, the name also, say next, say finish, and we have it. So now for this one, we can actually go and say not a refresh, but the download picture there. Okay, now let's go to resources folder again, new image asset, and the last one that we want there. Let's see if there's a copy one, content copy, say okay, and let's call it copy, say next, say finish, and then we can go and change the picture there from refresh to copy. Now if we run this now, actually nothing will happen, and this is also not a very nice indication of how it will look. It will most probably show all 3 of them depending how long your title is. So we'll have a look at that now. Now for us to actually see something now, if you run it you won't see this action bar at all. So we need to go to the main activity and tell it where to go and have a look at the options menu. So we need a method called the onCreate options menu. So you're going to right click there, you're going to say generate, override methods, and you're going to search for the onCreate options menu. onCreate options menu, there you go. So we need this method, and you can keep that return type or the return to super, and we're just going to say get menu inflator, and we're going to call inflate. And now what we want to inflate is r.menu. In our menu folder, we've got a main XML file that has got all the resources for how I want my action bar to look. And then I will just pass in this menu that was passed into this method. And now if you run it, you will actually see your action bar running. Let's just quickly have a look at it. Right, so there you can see there's the action bar now in action. Okay, so you can see that all three of the pictures are showing there, but in this preview that I have here on the right hand side, it's not showing. So this is not an accurate representation of how it will actually show on the device. So you can see there, now the order in category, you can see there all of them has got 100, which means refresh will be first, then download, and then copy. But if I want to rearrange them, I can say this one should be 100, that one should be 101, and this one should be 102, which means download will be first from the left, then copy, and then refresh. So let's just run it quickly again. Right, so now you can see download first, then copy, and then refresh. So your order in category, you can either make them all the same and have them in the specific sequence you want, or you can change the sequence by changing the order in category. Now at this stage, if I just hold in on this one, you can see the title download. If I hold in on that one, you can see the title copy. And if I hold in on that one, it says refresh. So let's say for refresh, you don't want refresh to be at the top there. So I'm going to say there, instead of if room, I'm going to say never. Now if I run this again, then the refresh button will never show as a picture in the action bar. It will go to the overflow menu. Right, so now you can see that this one, where are we now? This one, refresh, is not part of the actions there, but there's an overflow, and there you can see refresh. Okay, so this is how you'll do your overflow menu, and also the if room there also indicates that if there's not enough room, it will go into the overflow. Right, so let's go back to the main activity, because obviously now when we click it, nothing happens because we haven't coded what should happen. So let's see how we can do the coding. Right, so let's go to main activity. Now in the main activity, we'll add another method there. So you're going to right click and say generate again, override methods. And the method that we're searching for is the on options item selected method. So go to that method, keep the return statement there. We want that return statement. And then you can see there's a menu item that was passed in. So if the menu item, you see these are all menu items. If they get clicked, we know which ID was actually clicked there. And that's why we need IDs for them. Okay, so we've got the item that was clicked. And from the item that was clicked, we can get the ID and use it in a switch. So I'm going to say switch item dot get ID or get item ID, and then we can test for those specific IDs. So the first one, case r.id. Now remember the first one there was called refresh, download, and copy. So let's go to refresh. So if the refresh one was clicked, we can just show a toast for now. Let's just say refresh clicked. Then I'm going to break. Let's try another case there. Sorry about that. Just go to a new line. Okay, so we're going to say case r.id. Let's take the download one. And we'll also show the toast there. Download clicked. Then we can break again. And let's do the last one, the copy. So I'm going to say r.id.copy. And then we can also show a toast there. Copy clicked. And obviously you can use this now to take the guy to a new activity or refresh your list or whatever you wanted to do. This is just an example to see how the action bar works. So if we run this now, so you can see here on option item selected method, we get the ID of the item that was clicked. And then based on the ID, we can do something. So the best way to do this is to actually just call a method inside of the switch that will go and do something for you. Right, so let's see how this works now. If I click on that one, it says download clicked. If I click on this one, it's copy clicked. And if I go down the list and I click on refresh, refresh clicked. Now let's see how we can customize our title there at the top. So for this, we need to go into the onCreate and set up a few things. Right, so for this, we're going to use the ActionBar class and make sure it's the support version. So it's going to be ActionBar, let's just call it ActionBar as well, equals get support ActionBar, to get our support ActionBar so that we can start setting components on it. So I'm going to say ActionBar dot set the title, and you can see now we can set the title here. So the title, let's just call it welcome. And then we can also actually set a subtitle there. So you can say ActionBar dot set subtitle, and let's set the subtitle welcome to our app, or whatever you want to say. Then also on that, we can set an icon for your action bar. So for now, let's just see if this works. Okay, so you can see there, I've set the title to welcome and the subtitle to welcome to our app. Okay, so you can do a subtitle normally, not a subtitle in there, but you also welcome to use the subtitle there. Then we can also add some pictures there. So I'm going to remove the subtitle there and maybe add an icon. So if I want to add a picture, I need to go to the resources again. I'm going to say image asset. And now you can basically go and do the same thing again. You can either use an image or a clip art. So I'm just going to go with a clip art there for a picture. And let's say we want to use, let's say the bicycle picture there. So I'm going to say, okay, there, you can make your picture anything you want there, any color. Let's make it, let's make it this blue one. Probably not going to see it at all. So let's make it like a light green or something, just to see it like that. And we're going to call this, let's call it cycle. And we're going to say next and say finish. Now, in order to set this picture now as your action bar's icon, you're just going to call actionbar.set icon. And to set this icon, you're going to say r.drawable dot, and now you can see there's cycle, so you can choose it. And you'll see the picture also on the left hand side. Now for this to work, if you run it now, you won't actually see it. So there's two settings you need to set, or set enabled here, and that's the set display use logo enabled, and you must set it to true. And then also that will still not display unless you set display show home enabled and set it to true. Now let's see if we run this now, if it works now. Right, and now you can see the bicycle there with welcome, and maybe you can add some space there just after the welcome there to have it a bit more space there in between. But there you can see your action bar working nicely now. Right, so there's the picture, there's your title, and there's your action bar icons. Right, so this is basically then doing your own custom action bar. So what we can also now let the action bar help us with is navigation in our activity with the back button there. So let's see how we can include a back button. So for example, I'm just going to add another activity here. So I'm going to go to new activity, and let's go to empty activity. Let's leave it as main 2 activity, that's fine. And you're just going to say finish. Right, so this is then the second activity that we want to start. And what I want to do is to do exactly the same thing that we did here. I'm going to go to main 2 activity. I'm going to add this coding there, which says welcome again. Or maybe we can call this one second activity. And let's say for the second activity, we're not going to show the picture there. And I'm not going to show the subtitle there. So now what we want to do and what we want to include with this one is to go and say actionbar.set display home as up enabled. So for that up enabled, we're going to say true there. And now it will add that back button for us. So let's run this quickly. Okay, so this will actually not help us at all because we haven't started the second activity. So let's use the download button there on the main activity. So I'm going to use the download button there to start the new activity. So I'm going to say start activity, new intent, from the main activity.this, the context. And then where we want to go is main2activity.class. Right, let's try this again. Run it. Right, so now we programmed this button to take us to the second activity. And now you can see for the second activity, it's got a back button there that we can click because of this method that we use there that says set display home as up enabled. But now you'll see that if you click it, nothing actually happens. So you need to go and tell this button where to go. So now what we're going to do is to go into the manifest file. And for this main2 activity, we'll add a few settings here. So let's just open it up so we can add a few settings there. So we're going to add metadata there. We're going to say metadata name. So the Android name is, and make sure you spell this correct, android.support.parent_activity. And then we're going to add another piece of metadata there, and the value, so the name is parent activity, and the value is which one is the parent activity for main2 activity. Where do we want to go back to? And so I'm going to set this as the main activity, and then we can just close it off with the /. So basically what we're saying now is that main activity 2's or main2 activities parent activity is main activity. So if I click the back button, where should it go? It should go to the parent activity called main activity. So let's run this again. Right, so let's click on the download button there, which takes us to the second activity. Click on the back button, and it takes me back to the main activity, which is the parent activity. Right, and that is the basics of your app bar or your action bar. I hope that you've enjoyed this video.